Joining us on the Guadalupe Radio Network to talk more about the upcoming regional conference known as Converging Roads is Susie Saenz. Susie is Chief of Staff and Vice President at the St. John Paul II Foundation. Susie, thanks so much for coming in here to the KSHJ studio. We appreciate your being here.
Yes, well, thank you for inviting me.
I want to ask you all about the JP2 Foundation, but first let me ask you about your role, Chief of Staff and Vice President. That sounds like a big job. What all, Susie, does that entail?
Yes, so I've been working for the JP2 Foundation now for almost 8 years, and so when I joined, I was doing much of my work on the mission side. So I was an event planner. That's my background. And so when I first started, I was coordinating our conferences, and then over the years have just sort of continued to grow in leadership roles. And so at the beginning of this year, in 2025, I sort of moved over to the president's office into this role. And so really assisting our president, Arlen Nichols, with the various priorities that he has going on. He does a lot with fundraising. He also does a lot of mission, sort of business development focused efforts. So sort of just assisting him with that and then helping him to run the organization. So we've been very blessed to grow as a team and now have a little bit over 20 employees. And so there's just lots of things that go on every day, right, that need to be attended to. So just assisting him in those various ways. And I also get the chance to travel and speak at our conferences. And so I know today we're going to get to talk about our conference here in Houston. And that is coming up, so it's nice to be able to do it sort of here at home. But getting to travel and be with the many people that we get to serve through these conferences and emceeing and just getting to be with them as we do this beautiful mission that's been entrusted to us.
Well, congratulations on the growth of the St. John Paul the Foundation over the years. It's great that you guys are able to add more staff, and I appreciate, Susie, you're clarifying that even though the St. John Paul the Foundation is based here in Houston, you guys host conferences and do activities all across the nation. So it's always exciting to hear about the different things that you guys are doing all across the country. So tell me about this upcoming Converging Roads Conference here in Houston. It's going to be held at the University of St. Thomas, a fitting location. It's the Catholic University here in Houston. But this Converging Roads Conference is aimed, if I'm thinking correctly, at medical healthcare professionals, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So, our Converging Roads initiative, it's our medical ethics initiative. And so really what that means, at least for right now, is that we are traveling and serving healthcare professionals, providing these one-day conferences where they get to receive continuing education. We know that's very attractive for them. They all have to receive that continuing education in order to be licensed and practice. And so for us, being able to provide this wonderful day of formation for them that really is helping them to bridge the gap from practicing medicine, but also knowing that the church has just this richness when it comes to how to care for the person, right? This idea of human dignity, which is going to be very, very much a focus of this conference that's coming up in April. And so how can a medical professional, whether it's a doctor or a nurse, even a chaplain, when they walk into the room and encounter a patient, how can they go about that that's distinctly Catholic? And is done in such a way that really is able to see that, yes, this is someone who's made in the image of God, and I'm encountering them, and this is an opportunity for me to sort of live out my vocation that I've been called to through the practice of medicine. So these conferences, again, we offer them in lots of places throughout the country. We were just in Austin and over in Fort Myers, Florida a couple weeks ago. And so getting to see how those different communities, right, those medical professionals, they all need sort of something different. There might be various things that their local community is really looking for expertise and some assistance in and accompaniment in. But here in Houston, we're going to focus on Catholic social doctrine, and I think it's just such a beautiful thing for us to really educate, inform our medical professionals here in Houston on what does that mean. The church has this richness, this beautiful wealth of knowledge when it comes to taking care of people that are sick and dying. And so how can a Catholic physician or nurse approach that differently?
Well, having a Converging Roads Conference here in Houston seems appropriate, of course, because of all the the medical center and all the healthcare professionals here in Houston. But I appreciate, Susie, you're mentioning the fact that you guys are going to be mentioning the Catholic perspective, Catholic doctrine on this. It's funny, even though we're in a city where there's a lot of medicine, not necessarily the Catholic position, and even what you mentioned, human dignity, is mentioned on a day-to-day or even a month-to-month basis in what these professionals are doing. How important is this kind of conference? And when you get feedback from people, I guess it's rewarding to hear, hey, these are topics that we typically talk about in our job on a day-to-day basis.
Right. And again, with the medical center, we also have lots of med schools, right? So the educational piece of that too. So these conferences don't just draw current medical professionals, but also lots of students. And so we're so grateful that those students sort of are looking ahead, right? And recognizing, I'm not receiving this formation in medical school right now. And this is something where, again, I feel like the Lord has called me to practice medicine. And yet now I'm found sort of lacking when it comes to this formation. So again, this is a one-day conference, but we really are going to try to give them some tools, practical tools for them to be able to apply, whether they're, again, in medical school, nursing school, or if they actually are already practicing, because their ability to, again, walk into that room and feel confident that they have both the expertise on the medical side, but also on that human side, right? Again, to really encounter their patient with charity and compassion. So you also mentioned that, here in Houston, we don't have maybe a large presence of Catholic healthcare. There are some, and actually we're very blessed that we have someone joining us on a panel from the San Jose Clinic, right? So that's a wonderful organization that really does care for vulnerable populations who don't otherwise have access to healthcare. And so organizations like that where the church has sort of stepped up, right, and said, no, everyone deserves sort of this dignified access to healthcare, and so how can we make that happen for everyone? So thinking about creative ways that the church has done this for many years, right? But even here in our archdiocese, there are really good people who are sort of stepping up and answering that call.
Susie, I want to ask you more about kind of the feedback you've heard from medical professionals, because you've worked for Baylor College of Medicine before. You've helped organize these conferences like Converging Roads in years past. What do you think when talking with healthcare medical professionals about some of the challenges in this day and age to be able to practice their faith?
Yeah, no. I think, I'm also just grateful that I have friends who are in the medical field that even they themselves have attended the conference and said, this is unique, right? This is not something that I get to sort of receive anywhere else. And so for them, I think the support that they really desire from the church, again, like they know that the church is meant to accompany them in every part of life, right? And so being able for us to step into that need, I think is really important and is really needed. So a nurse, right, who is at the bedside of someone who is maybe at the end of their life. We have speakers who speak on palliative care, right? That's not the topic for this year, but in past, something like palliative care and being able to be with people, right, to really accompany them at the end is such a gift. It can seem to some, if there isn't that supernatural lens that they're looking at it with, it can feel overwhelming. It can also maybe feel discouraging. And yet, when we look at it through the perspective of the teachings of the church and this idea of redemptive suffering and again just the dignity with which we all have been bestowed with, I think that is how a nurse, right, who again is sitting at the bedside there with their patient, can really approach that time differently than a nurse who doesn't otherwise have that faith-based support and accompaniment. And for the physician, right, who might really encounter some challenging ethical issues, right, in their practice, whether they might be an OB-GYN, right? We're again very lucky to have so many wonderful Catholic OB-GYNs who are able to proclaim the gospel of life through how they practice their medicine. But maybe in a secular institution, that's a lot harder to do. And so, having someone stand up there and share their testimony of how they once prescribed contraceptives and then learned what the church taught and learned how there was another way and a better way to really practice medicine can be really transformational and a conversion point for so many people. So yeah, I think that's what we want people to realize, that there are those who are in their shoes, right, and those that very much understand the challenges that they encounter on a daily basis. And even one of the talks that we're going to be having again in April is really how to cooperate, right, within a secular environment, right,
yeah.
or even how to really engage with maybe a patient who isn't otherwise faith-based, right? And I think that in today's age, right, there are so many people who don't share our faith or don't share the Christian faith, and so the likelihood of you encountering a patient who doesn't happen to have really a faith is probably going to be very common for most healthcare professionals. And so having a nurse, right, share some ways in which that sort of those encounters can still be fruitful, right, and still can be those that people can walk away with and say, like, wow, that was, I really felt like from the secular patient, maybe, I really felt like they were listening to me. I really felt like they wanted to help me. I really felt like they were caring for me, even though, right, we don't share that faith. And so I think that, again, healthcare professionals, they're trained to be experts in the clinical piece. But I think there's so much more to caring for the whole person that these conferences just sort of open their eyes to, and so many of them share just how transformational it's been and how they approach their daily work so differently now.
So many big topics when you think about the ethics and this industry and of course just being Catholic in our secular society in general, much less in the healthcare industry. So Converging Roads, the other benefit you mentioned was we got continuing education. Of course, networking is so important because, of course, all these professionals get together. They realize they have other Catholics around as well. I'm sure that in the past you've seen people who have attended the conference, repeat conference attendees, because I imagine they get so much out of it. Just to recap, Susie, some of the basics here. We've got Converging Roads. It's April 12th. And it starts early. It's a one-day conference at the University of St. Thomas. Again, give me the JP2 Foundation website for people who want to learn more.
Absolutely. So for this conference, you're going to go to convergingroads.com/Houston.
Okay.
Now, you can also just go to convergingroads.com, and over on the side, you're going to see all the upcoming conferences that we have. So maybe someone's listening this morning that isn't in Houston. You want to be either joining us for this conference online. We do have that option as well. And we also have several other conferences coming up over the next couple weeks and headed into the fall that might be of interest to you. So convergingroads.com, and then for those in Houston/Houston.
Pretty easy to remember. That's great. Susie, I do want to ask you a little bit more about yourself. You had mentioned, of course, that you've been at the JP2 Foundation now since 2017, but of course, you'd gone to Texas A&M. You know this area very well. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. You now have an 11-month-old. Where do you and your family go to church nowadays?
Yes. So we, my husband and I met it was the spring of 2022. Spring of 2022.
Okay.
And we were married in 2023 at St. Joseph.
Okay,
and
very
so
good.
that is our parish. So
yeah. Shout out to Father Victor Perez.
Victor, we love Father Victor. And so that's where our little boy was baptized last spring. And so he'll be turning 1 here next month. Just the Lord has been so kind and patient with me as I joined the JP2 Foundation almost 8 years ago. I really had no idea where the Lord would take me, and I was so grateful that He kept me here in Houston, where I was very, very excited to be. I'm originally from the Dallas area. Again, moved to Texas A&M for college, and then moved here immediately after, and have just really found a home here in Houston. I love the Catholic community here. I've been involved in things like Young Catholic Professionals and other apostolates here in Houston, and it's just great to see how alive the church is here, and I'm just really excited for my little boy to grow up here and in a wonderful parish like St. Joseph, at least for now. My husband and I just love being parishioners there. So
Is it tough trying to balance your job at the JP2 Foundation with being a mom?
So that is a new challenge. So being a single young adult for much of my professional career did allow me. Again, I think it was just the Lord's timing for everything. I met my husband a little bit later in life, and he too was we were both in our 30s, and so I think we had done a lot of life before we got married, and so learning how to sort of reprioritize and look at our family life a little differently. Again, he receives just wonderful formation from the church through various activities, and my work at the foundation obviously is both professional but also spiritual. I've just grown so much through my involvement there, and so I think that it was something that was really a priority for us, at least right now in this phase of family life. And I'm grateful my little boy, he does go to daycare 4 days of the week. And I love the people that take care of him. They take such good care of him. And I'm so just thankful that the Lord has provided that for us. And then on Fridays, I get to be home with him. And so that's really wonderful. And so just trying to enjoy the time that I have with him as he's little. And it's such a special gift to be called to the vocation of motherhood and to be able to live out my maternity both through my vocation to that, but also my vocation here in my work to the foundation. So.
Well, I imagine he's growing fast, and so you and your husband are probably taking a lot of photos.
Yes, photos, videos, all the things, and he's on the verge of crawling and walking, and so we're soon going to be chasing him around, but it's really exciting.
It's amazing we live in a day and age where we have our phones so readily available so you can just track the growth. It's pretty amazing. Susie, before we go, any favorite saints, prayers, or personal devotions?
So I think obviously I have a very fond love for St. John Paul II. He was not someone really that I would say had been a friend of mine until I began working for the foundation. But soon he sort of became an older brother to me and really has helped me grow in my own just understanding of the truths of the church and the beautiful teaching that it has for us. And so I'm just so grateful that he's been such an instrumental part of my journey. But then also it's actually sort of related to this, but I love Saint Gianna Molla. So when I was preparing for marriage, I had a friend who shared a book of her letters with her husband, Pietro. And so really just getting to know her through that and just the beautiful story that she has and continues to sort of live on through her children and everything. And so she was just someone who both really embraced her vocation to marriage, but also her vocation to medicine and her professional work. And it was just beautiful to see someone really live all those things very fully and then ultimately, to give her life for the gift of life. And so that's just such a beautiful example for me as a woman. So I love St. Gianna. Yeah.
Very good. Yeah, two powerful examples there of the saints. Very good. Well, Susie Saenz, we appreciate your time. Again, let's just recap before we go here. Converging Roads is coming up on April 12th, and that's going to be held at the University of St. Thomas. One more time, website for signing up for that one.
convergingroads.com/Houston.
And we also, of course, want to encourage people to check out the JP2 Foundation website in general because you guys host a number of conferences throughout the year. Give me the general website for the foundation.
Yes. So if you go to forlifeandfamily.org, again, that's our mission statement, is we proclaim the gospel of life and the gospel of the family through our initiative. So forlifeandfamily.org.
Very good. Well, again, many blessings to you and to the foundation, and congratulations on the continued growth of it as you guys continue to offer these conferences and so much to people here in Houston and across the country. Susie Saenz, Chief of Staff, Vice President of the St. John Paul II Foundation. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.